I'll check to see what's on the stealth camera. And my eyes were like, oh my, what is this deer and where did it come from?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast powered by DeerCast. I'm Tim Kjellesvik.
I'm Matt Drury. We got some in-studio special guests today.
We got your cousins.
That's right.
Jason Lurk.
And Justin Lurk. What's up, boys?
What's happening?
So we don't have Jared Lurk, but we don't have room on the podcast. Otherwise, I would have had Jared come in too.
We could get like a head.
That's right. Yeah. So
a lot of things we divide and conquer. So
yeah,
you know what?
2 or 3
we'll sit in today.
So the audience, if you've been following along with Drury Outdoors at any length of time, you've known Jared forever and Justin for a long time too. You've been on the team, 15 years probably at least.
More, yeah.
Yeah. So
06.
Mostly on the Bow Madness cast, their hunts, but Jared's grown up on Drury Outdoors and been a part of it since day one, really, and known always for killing those big Iowa giants for the longest period of time. And as life tends to do, he's in a different phase of his life and with the kids and all that, and he moved back here to the St. Louis area, and so he's been focused on Henry a lot in the last few years. But just want to give a little backstory of that. What we're talking about today, though, is kind of an interesting. It's interesting how you look at a timeline and see like all the different routes that come off of the timeline, right? And you guys have had a piece of property. Your dad's had a piece of property down in Bloomsdale, which is where we're all from originally, for 40 years, right?
Yeah, bought it in 84.
So the story takes a bit of a turn, last August, right? With your father. He ends up having a stroke, and you guys go through some pretty tough stuff for the next, 5-6 months. Yeah. And, I'm going to let you take the story over from here. We're going to talk about Jason's big 180-inch deer that he killed in Bloomsdale. But I think we need to dive into the full story that leads into it, because it's pretty special, and I think it deserves some, I think it deserves an episode here of us chatting about it, and it's going to end up on Dream Season Live on YouTube and DeerCast here, probably as we air this episode, that will air the same week. So the timing's all pretty good here. So why don't you guys kind of take it away, and Tim and I can kind of jump in as we have some questions for you.
Sure. I'll start off, like, as you think about, deer hunting season, like when you really start, do you ever stop, right? But as you mentioned, Dad had a stroke in August of last year, when we would normally be putting in food plots and hanging cameras and stuff like that. And it wasn't just like a little, like it was a massive stroke, massive brain bleed. So he's in pretty rough shape for a long while. So last year's deer season was kind of a wash for all of us, really.
Yeah.
I was able to take the kids out a little bit. I got Brady a deer and Ava Bell a deer, hunted like 3 days and got 2 deer. So I felt really good about that. Right?
Good odds.
Not bad odds.
You were out with Braxton. You guys hunted together,
we
actually.
Hunted together, Braxton and Ava Bell and Jason and myself. So I think we've all been focusing on the kids a lot, which is cool. Seeing them get involved and, seeing it through their eyes. But yeah, last year was a wash. So, Dad had passed away this year, late January. And that's a different view for Mom. So we started looking at how do we set things up for her, and there was discussion about selling this land, and then ultimately, like, she wanted to keep it. So during
and what made her want to keep the ground?
I think Dad bought it back in '84, and Jared even asked him when he bought it. He's like, well, why'd you buy this ground? And Dad's response was, for you boys. So I think that rung true.
Yeah.
And at that time, he would have had no way to know what you guys have all become very successful in business and in life. And he would have had no way to know that, Jason, you've been on some great hunts down in Texas. And Justin, of course, you've had several great hunts over the year. And Jared has owned several pieces of great dirt in Iowa and Missouri. And you guys have had your own opportunities in different places, but he would have no way to know that, obviously, then. So he's thinking, this is the legacy.
Be the legacy.
There in Bloomsdale, Missouri, in a spot that you probably wouldn't traditionally think would be a big buck magnet. It's next to some great ground.
Yeah.
Our grandpa Ralph, his brother Marvin, owns quite a bit of dirt right there, and so it's right next to some good stuff. And they're managing great down there, and have been for
the whole county.
Yeah, for several years. So it's really turned into something that it wasn't back 40 years ago.
Sure. I mean, I remember going hunting like for rifle season. We were just rifle hunters, so go hunting as much as I could after school every day, on the weekends all day every day. And if you saw 2 or 3 deer for the season, like you're like, yes,
I saw a doe, I saw a spike.
Yeah, like that was it. That was the season. So like that was, in our minds, that's hunting dad's property.
Yeah,
right.
It's about a mile from my mom and dad's house,
Correct.
probably 3 miles, 4 miles from your house.
Right.
Where you grew up.
Yeah, but we've all hunted there.
Yeah.
You killed your first deer there.
I killed my first deer there.
How far away from the stand?
Maybe 10 yards from where I was hunting for this 180, which
Nice.
I think we'll get to. But I want to jump back to talking with mom and saying, what do you want to do with the land? It's 130 acres. And as Justin said, do you want us to improve it, set it up? We could bring our grandkids down, pull mom into some of those hunts. And she threw her arms up with excitement and said, I would absolutely love that.
Really?
So, it was one of those things that we just saw it click with her. She hunted a lot with Mark and Terry and enjoys it as well. So once we pulled that piece in, we really started kind of a dedication to improving it and making it suitable to hunt this season and future seasons. So,
and John, he hunted there a lot, but it wasn't necessarily the style of hunting that we have adopted and adapted to here, in recent years. It was more the style that you guys grew up hunting, and we all grew up hunting back then, right? I mean, there was a food plot, right?
We can just say there was a lot of pressure over there. by Dad.
It was his livelihood. Like he loved being over there.
I was going to say he spent a lot of time over there, and anybody from the St. Genevieve, Bloomsdale area, they would see John walking Highway 61. He lived a very active lifestyle, to say the least. Yeah. And he had a couple heart attack scares through the years, and so he was always walking. I mean, how many miles a day would he walk? He was retired.
He would wake up and start with 5. He would normally end at 10 to 12 miles a day.
So you would see him walking that outer road, or on 61, or you just see him around town a lot. But he spent a lot of time there at the property, right?
Yeah, and the primary source of heat for the home we grew up in was a wood burning fire stove, wood stove.
Still to this day.
Still, yeah. So 130 acres of solid timber, like it's a good spot to go cut some wood. So he was over there a lot.
Renewable energy. He was green before it was cool.
That's right. So,
so we, once we decided that with mom, we kind of talked with Jared a little bit, and he made a comment once he came down to look at the deer after I harvested it. And he said, back in January, February, when you talk with mom, he goes, I said, why would you put any time, energy, and effort in that place? Because we haven't killed a big deer on that property in 40 years. And I said, really, to what you said, St. Gen has a lot of better deer management.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of decent deer killed, and he's kind of been removed from that. And I said, well, I think that St. John County is really improving. A lot of people are managing, and a lot of the neighbors are managing. So he admitted that day, he goes, you proved me wrong. Yeah. I think that's the first time he said that. Yeah. So
are we recording?
I'm like, mom was there. Okay.
I got witness.
And we should also say, so your cousin Eric Lurk, he was also a big part of this. Your brother-in-law Phil Phil Loida was a big part of this. You guys, it was a family, affair. And Jared helped as well, and so it was kind of all hands on deck to get it ready and prepared. And I'm sure you guys would have to speak on this, but I'm sure once John passed and Linda said, yes, let's keep it, it was almost like hey, this is my dad's legacy. Let's make it something spectacular for generations to come. Something that wasn't really looked at. I mean, you guys have all hunted for a while, but when's the last time? Well, you've hunted.
I've hunted there a few years, taking the kids down.
Yeah, but not really like honed in on doing a ton of early season prep or off season prep to make it something that you would see in North Missouri or in Iowa or something like that.
The property that I lease is 4 hours away, so to quickly take a kid and go hunt, it's not a spur of the moment decision. So I've gone down to Bloomsdale to satisfy that need, like they want to get out there and go hunt. So it's a nice opportunity. I remember Jason saying, like, why don't we improve this property? Like, he was the first one to kind of pull it up and say, why don't we improve this?
Yeah.
And I agreed with him. So
yeah, it's not a small farm. I mean, it's a good piece of land as far as the acreage is concerned. It's kind of what you guys always call like the goat hill, right? But hey, it's a piece of ground.
Right.
It's one of those things too. I think overarching a lot of this, being students of the game, being lifelong learners. My son Braxton is 10, almost 11. He watches Drury Outdoors DVDs all the time in the car. Religiously. And I'm always listening to those. And I was continuously learning the last couple of years. But the biggest thing, the consistent theme, if you can't find a new piece of ground, make your piece better.
Yeah.
And that's what we set out to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Find a better spot or make your piece better.
Yeah.
So on that note, kind of backtracking a little bit. So John, before he had his stroke, he had been in conversations with a logger, correct?
Mm-hmm. He had been. Yeah.
So
he was interested in getting it logged.
Yeah. So that was kind of, the wheels were kind of in motion there. Mm-hmm. What happened, once he had a stroke, what then happened?
Yeah. So not knowing how long he'd be in the hospital, physical therapy, what not, we were trying to figure out how, Dad was a provider, right?
Yeah.
Mom and Dad were both retired, but Dad was still working as the water boy in Bloomsdale.
Yeah.
And, he was still the main source of income. So with that gone, how do we now help Mom try to offset what's not coming in? So we had talked after the stroke and dedicated Jared, like he's done land improvement, land management longer than any of us have.
Yeah. And very good at it.
So we said, hey, Dad had met with this logger. Do you mind reaching out to him and just seeing what we can do as far as residual income for Mom to kind of help offset some of these expenses? So the ball started going down the hill in December, I guess, really.
Yeah.
Right?
So he goes, John says, yes, go ahead and continue to go with the plan.
Yep.
Jared takes over. You guys log the piece. Mm-hmm. And does that play into, the story here?
100%.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, too, Dad was laying in the hospital bed, signed the contract, which was kind of cool for the logger. But the property hadn't been logged in the 40 years he owned it. No. Big, tall timber, pretty wide open. It needed selective cutting. And Jared went through with the logger, showed some areas. We really improved the access too. That's something Justin always speaks of. Man, the access isn't that great down there. There's one road that goes right through the middle of it.
You got to drive through the whole property to get anywhere.
So Jared had helped kind of lay it out where the logging roads may be, improving some access to different parts of the property we didn't have. And really around this main stand, it was heavily cut on the south-facing slope. And all those tops were left. Sunlight hitting
cover.
Good cover. Sunlight hitting the ground. A lot of underbrush came up in this area, which this has been a stand that I said I killed my first deer on. Jared hunted and killed a lot of deer out of it.
I've killed deer out of it.
Yeah.
So
it's an establised stand.
I almost shot my toe off in that stand. That was
how old were you?
36.
Right. But this is a homemade, blind, right?
Homemade blind.
Yeah. Stand, I guess.
Stand, yes. Probably 20 feet in the air. Mm-hmm. Dad dropped me up. Dad loved getting out there early, really, really early. And this was the first year he dropped me off to hunt on my own. I'm using a 30-30 lever action.
Like we all did.
Yeah, yeah. So lever action, he dropped me off and he's like, you good? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And I went to climb up in the stand, which was 20 feet tall and, just wooden steps everywhere. And I don't know if I feel comfortable yet. It was so dark, I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm just going to sit down at the base of the tree and wait for it to get a little light before
It's reasonable.
Yeah. And prior to that, Dad had always pulled the lever back for me on that gun.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
It was cocked and ready. Huh?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't. So I'm sitting at the base of the tree. I'm like, Dad always cocked this for me. I should cock this gun, before anything starts moving. So, big massive gloves on. I'm just sitting there, feet crossed, guns out, and I go to cock it, and it slips off, and boom, fires. It's it's still pitch dark. Right? And my eyes are big. I'm like, okay, 10 toes, I'm all good.
Holy cow.
But yeah, that was 10 yards away.
Did he come back over?
He came back. He didn't come back right away. No, like we hunted, right?
Hey, I heard you shoot at 5 o'clock.
He heard me shoot at 5 o'clock.
Come on, John.
It wasn't daylight for another 30, 45 minutes. But when he came and picked me up around 10, he's like, did you shoot early this morning? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine, Dad. Thanks.
Clearing out the barrel, Dad.
Yeah.
Guess you had more ammo.
Yeah, I did. So.
A pretty trusting dad. Just to be like,
John was old school. Old school guy.
I only imagine like what he was thinking. I'm like, he's probably good. I'll just wait till 10 to check.
John's a Marine. Yeah. He's old school. He's a pretty stoic guy.
A man of man.
A man of few words.
Yeah.
So.
Our first deer rifle was a 12 gauge.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a 12 gauge slug. And it's still to this day why I pull when I shoot. I mean, we're just looking down the
still
barrel.
in you.
Yes. Yeah. We started hunting at the age of 13 with a 12 gauge slug.
Yeah. His theory was if you can shoot this gun, you can shoot anything.
That's a way to look at it.
Not wrong.
Yeah.
I actually, there's a picture though that Mom found of Dad's first deer in 1974, and I meant to text you and Jared and Mom, and now I know why we got a 12 gauge slug, because he shot a 12 gauge with his first, so that's what he knew. Yeah. So anyway,
That's funny.
Yeah. So back to the logging. Then unfortunately Dad passed in January, and going through a lot after someone passes, the grieving, the paperwork, helping Mom. Yeah. We kind of lost January, February, March, and
not only that, but you guys had part of when he had a stroke, he was moving. You guys were moving him and Linda into a new home. That they had just renovated. Eric had helped them renovate, you guys. And so it was just timing, never great, terrible in every sense of the word. Yeah. Linda moved in and never stayed there until really after John's passing.
Right.
So it was just, you guys are going through a lot for really, we say 5.5 months, but it's really, it never really ends.
Right.
Correct.
And so, like you said, you lose January, February, March. When do you guys start really thinking back and saying, you know what, let's put a plan together here?
It probably was March or April. Yeah. Remember when we went over there and we almost got lost in some of it? You did. You're like, where are we?
I got turned around. I'm like, I don't know what road we're on, or are we on our property?
Pull up Deercast.
Yeah, I did. We had to pull up Deercast, and I'm like, we're still on the property.
Because there's Brown that got lost on his own property outside of Nashville a couple of years back.
Yeah.
Because there's new roads, like we hadn't been to some of these areas because of the logging. So
And it's so hilly. 130 acres flat doesn't feel like this. You know how
it's
big
just
timber,
one giant hill.
Yes. Well, it's a couple.
Yeah. Are there a couple?
Yeah. A couple big ridges. So, we went over there to check out the new logging roads and thought, man, this is great.
Yeah.
The deer will travel these. We have great access to spots we didn't have. And, I remember then really getting excited and starting to develop the plan for this season.
And you guys, to backtrack, you didn't know about this deer necessarily.
No.
You didn't have a target buck in mind. You were just improving.
We had no cameras out the year before because of Dad's stroke. And then prior to that, like he had 1 or 2 cameras that he would set up and had some bucks on it year after year. And he always had decent bucks.
Yeah. Think back though, you hunted November of 22.
I hunted November of 22 with Brady, and it was during rifle season, snow on the ground. And I was going in, I just bought a new camera. So I was just going in and maybe we shoot a doe, right? Just again, taking a kid out there, satisfying that itch. And lo and behold, this massive buck comes walking down the hill, and I'm like, oh my God, what the heck? I had no expectation.
Yeah. Like, oh boy.
Why are you surprised, Dad?
Yeah. And Dad didn't go hunting with us. Like I was begging Dad to go with us, me, Brady, and Dad. And he's like, no, I don't feel good. I'm going to stay here and take a nap. I'm like, okay. So this buck's come out, and like I'm trying to film it because,
Drury Outdoors, that's what we do.
Film it. So I'm self-filming, and then I'm texting Dad like, hey, do you have a giant 10-pointer over here? Like I didn't want to go over there and shoot Dad's buck. Like we hadn't talked about any deer on the no shoot list, or hey, here's what you go shoot, because I was thinking we'll slip in and go shoot a doe. And this deer is out there, and I'm like, he's at 45 yards with a 30-06 in my hand. So I'm like could have easily got him, but I'm texting Dad, he didn't respond. I'm texting Mom, she didn't respond.
Somebody please answer.
Someone answer, can I shoot this deer? Or not? Like if he didn't know about it, then I was going to shoot it. But if he's like, oh yeah, I know about it. So long story short, I never, the deer walks off until somebody got back to me, and Mom's like, yeah, Dad's not, he doesn't know of a big deer over there. I'm like, great. So,
well, he's still here.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
I know where he is.
Yeah. Yeah. So filmed him.
And fast forward, that was this buck.
That was this buck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He had a flyer off the right side, and pretty sure we went back and looked at the film, but but he was not on our radar.
He was.
Yeah.
I just thought at the time he was somebody that
somebody
just walked
walking through. Yeah. Gun season.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure. Just coming through.
Yep. We never saw him again, and we had a few cameras out. I think we had 1 or 2 cameras out.
Which you guys, nobody was there last year, so you don't know if he was there or not.
Yeah.
So, okay, fast forward back to present day here. It's April, May. What kind of work do you guys decide to put into the property? It's logged. What do you think? All right, we got to do this, this, and this to make this a hunting place for us.
Yeah, Jason's brother-in-law, Phil Lloyda, big farmer as well. Lloydas are big farmers.
Dr. Phil.
St. John, Dr. Phil. Yeah.
He's a dentist. He farms.
Yeah.
Farming's kind of his passion of getting out of dentistry.
Yeah.
But
and their family, that's their family kind of background as well as dad
Farming,
and all that. Yeah.
So you can talk about that.
Yeah. Well, really, though, that March, April timeframe, we went over there a couple times. I went with cousin Eric, too. He's kind of like another brother to us. He's always willing to help out.
Well, that's
Matt,
where we differ.
Matt used to be called the fourth brother.
Mom always says the fourth son.
Yeah, I'm the fourth son.
So Eric's maybe the fourth brother.
Okay.
Well, yeah,
John liked Eric more. Let's be honest.
But mom liked you more.
Thank you.
So Eric came over, and actually we had Braxton. There's still a lot of limbs over some of the logging paths. A storm had maybe come through, so we cut those up. We identify what we need to do. So then it wasn't until July, actually, that I brought Phil over. Had a skid steer, bush hog attachment, grapple. Spent all day over there. Bush hogging the bottom food plot, the top food plot, the logging roads. He cut a lot of those. We pushed a couple trees out of the top food plot. I cut them up. He had a grapple with a huge brush pile now. And then this particular stand that we hunted, the established stand, was all grown up around it. But 2 logging roads like horseshoed around it out to 50 yards.
Perfect.
Yes, it was perfect. So I had him clean everything up in between those.
Sure.
And just thinking, like, if you're sitting in the stand, you can't see anything. Like, how did Dad hunt here? So anyway, looking at it, laying it out, we did the work to really open things up in, I think it was like July 19th.
Inside the timber.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. So you got shooting lanes, you got places where deer, it's not so thick they won't travel through there.
And it's not super open in a big field to where they feel exposed either.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like one of those little hidey holes.
Yep.
Right?
So yeah, that was July. And then you kind of picked up and took over. So, really with this, I identified like 3 overarching themes. Justin has another one, but teamwork, hard work, and patience. So the teamwork, it was myself, Justin, Jared, cousin Eric, my brother-in-law, Phil. A lot of us were doing things that I said Dad used to do by himself, which he didn't do all of this, but it took 5 of us to get this place ready. Yeah. And we all pitched in. So then Justin, you can kind of pick up with the food plot.
Yeah, so I took the tractor over and tiller over and started tilling and working up the ground to prepare for, putting out the seed and fertilizer, et cetera. So,
and no cameras out yet.
No cameras out yet. Yeah. So just took the tractor over, tiller over, got the bottom food plot tilled up, and tiller starts smoking. The clutch was. So Dad was very good at figuring out how to make things work for the time he needed it. Mm-hmm. He knew how everything works, so I didn't have that background. That, you needed to adjust a few of the
so
clutch.
He jerry-rigged it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got the bottom food plot tilled, and then dropped that off because it was smoking, and I'm like, all right, grab the disc and take it over, and maybe I can get the top food plot. So I started with that, but it was so dry, and it was ashy, and
we had a really dry patch in the summer. Mm-hmm. From when you went over there.
Right.
Early August, maybe?
Yeah, it was early August. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Real dry at that period.
Yeah.
Right when you want to plant.
Yeah.
Always.
So you didn't get the top food plot prepped or these logging roads back by the stand location. So I came down.
The dirt was just too dry, ashy. And
it's like clay, thick clay.
We're like, hey, we need to wait for a little rain to try to go disc this up.
So we timed it, we're big planners, look out in advance. So we timed it. Rain came. I went down, then dissed the top food plot and dissed the logging roads and kind of worked up where Phil bush hogged out in front of the stand, which we did spray all this stuff too. I forgot to mention that. Eric came over with a sprayer.
Yeah.
So we got it prepped, and then you and Jared come back in
then Jared and I came in and planned it right before rain. Again, planners looking at the forecast and deercast and when's the rain coming in. So Jared and I came down and planted the bottom plot because our strategy was, hey, that's the easiest place to get in and out of. So the least amount of intrusion. We're going to focus on the bottom. Let's get that planted. Let's get that fertilized, and let's get that food plot established. Dad never really had a great stand on the top plot, like at the top of the ridge. And we really never had food back by the stand. So I didn't focus a lot on
What were you guys going to plant? Because, that dirt right there, it's not necessarily, is that kind of rocky, clay, like hill dirt, or is it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
The bottom was good.
The bottom
soil.
always had great.
Yeah, and there's big ag fields all around,
Right.
and the bottom's all around.
Yeah, it floods there every once in a while, so you got that bottom land, good rich
Like
soil.
creek bottom,
Yeah.
Creek bottom.
So what did you plant?
Turnips and radishes.
Yeah.
In the bottom.
So early season type of a food source.
Early season for radishes, and then obviously after the first frost, those turnips start becoming a better late season game.
Yep. Yep. So what's next?
Yeah. So then they focused on the bottom food plot, and actually there was a lag there. Kind of, we need to look at the timeline better. But I then dissed the top food plot, kind of got that in late. It was, I think, after Labor Day.
It was after Labor Day.
Yeah. So I timed a rain. I dissed it, prepped it. I think another rain came, so I dissed the top, and then the logging roads around this tree stand. So those we got in late, but kind of interesting over Labor Day talking with Mark, and he's talking about palatability. So, having your food plots coming up at the right time that the deer are highly palatable. And actually Stoltz is like, yeah, I heard you talking about that, Mark, but he goes, I planted my food plots in August. And Mark goes, oh, good luck, Stoltz. But
Steve did kill.
Yeah, he did.
So, but it's one of those things where I'm in environments surrounded by Mark, your dad, Terry, you, a lot of people talking about it, and I just soak all this stuff in. So anyway, got the top food plot, got these logging roads planted.
And then we hung cameras.
I
I had a few cameras at my office that I'd never opened up and put out. So we put those out, and then stealth cams. And then I went online and bought 4 more because I was like, hey, it's 130 acres. We can't just put 2 or 3 cameras out there. All cell cameras. So primarily hadn't really hunted with a lot of cell cameras. I had a few, I think 2 or 3 cell cameras in the years before, and I loved them because you get that real-time information, right? With the stealth cams, they were a lower price point, so I was able to get a few more. So bought 4 more, and we had a total of 6 that we put out.
I think
first.
Yeah. Well, 1 we sent with Eric to put out on his property. So we had 5 out. And, it's September. Actually, anyway, we had them out for in August. Yeah. We had them out in August. We had them out before I did the last food plots.
Yeah.
And a bunch of does.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of does.
So you're in the bedding. You got their bedding area, basically.
Yeah, we had camera on the top plot, camera on the bottom plot, camera back by the stand that Jason killed out of, and a camera back by Dad's old stand that's just old and dilapidated.
Yeah.
Jason found a trail to put one on there. So
we're just getting does and does and does, and kind of lost momentum or steam. Like, man, a bunch of does over here.
Yeah. Tim, how's that feel?
Have you been there before?
I have a doe parade all year long on my cameras.
Yeah.
Every day, all day.
Yep.
So oddly enough, September 12th, Mom's birthday, at daylight at the stand that we tagged the camera, Dad's old stand. We get our first buck, like 8-point buck, and send it on our kind of family message. Mom, if we ever need a sign from Dad, here it is, like sun beaming down on this buck, like first buck we've gotten on camera on your birthday by his old stand. Yeah. So super cool.
And we didn't even think we'd get a deer on that camera.
No.
Because it was, not in a
prime spot.
spot. No food or anything over there. It was just on a trail. So
yeah.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool
sign. So, that was cool. I think it really meant a lot to Mom and all of us. And
you look for signs, and constantly, I think even with Cousin Joe, like I still think about and look for signs. And I think you probably with your dad, when you're out in the woods, it's things like that you just think about. And so I know your guys' faith, and especially Aunt Linda, I'm very positive that meant a lot to her, and she 1,000% knows it was a sign, right?
Yeah.
And Dad had a strong faith as well.
Yeah. So first picture, okay, good buck. Linda's birthday.
Mom's birthday.
John's old stand. Okay.
Yeah. And then we get more does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
And then that wears off. No more pictures.
So the steam went to a low.
So this was September 12th.
Yeah. September 12th, Mom's birthday, first buck, does for another week. We lose steam.
7 to 10 days.
There's 4 of us monitoring the stealth cams, and it seems like we kind of pulled back. The alerts come through, but you don't look as close. So September 22nd, my birthday, I wake up in the middle of the night, big thunderstorm, lightning, thunder, 2 a.m. I wake up, 3 a.m. and think, man, I forgot to cover my grill. So I grab my phone, flashlight, go outside, cover the grill. It's like, oh, I'll check to see what's on the stealth camera. And my eyes were like, oh my, what is this deer and where did it come from? Like, I could not believe it. Scrolling through, and the thing is just picture after picture after picture. This thing is a giant, right? I'm like, holy cow. Immediately,
how do I get the other guys off camera here?
Exactly, right? So I'm like, do I like text this to the group? It's like, no, I'll wait. It's 3 a.m. I'll go back to bed. I'm laying there, just my mind is racing. Like, where did this deer come from? Is he a one and done? Will we ever see him again? So I wake up Saturday morning, pull up my phone, because I immediately hit like HD image. And I was like, hopefully something triggered it. All these come through. So I look, and then he came back at like 4 a.m. So I have more pictures of him. I was like, oh my.
And
like,
what did Eric say?
Well,
Eric's hilarious.
Eric's hilarious. So I send out, and I was like, hey guys, how about we just keep this picture to ourselves? And Eric's like, I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
But
I thought somebody was messing with us. I mean, like, we've seen a lot of deer over the years, and like immediately you knew Bros Boone like had the frame of like a 200-inch deer almost.
Yeah. He's wide. Just interesting character.
Flyers, kickers, drops, everything. Yeah.
And I think I don't know if he still had a little bit of velvet on those pictures. He looked, or there was, it might have been some velvet coming off, but regardless, it was impressive.
Yeah.
And I even sent it to Mark, and his response was, "That's a big deer."
Yeah.
So
it's a big deer.
So anyway, that was the night of September 22nd, and then of course nothing on the 23rd.
Yeah, I think we all just thought this deer's walking through.
Yeah.
Great sign from Dad. Another buck on my birthday.
Yeah.
You know, we put in a lot of hard work, but it's
need
cool.
some more birthdays.
Yeah.
Line up there in deer season.
I got one coming up.
Yeah.
There you go.
Which Eric always gives me trouble, because I've been trying to get my son Braxton a deer. So I've had some cameras out the last couple of years, and he's like, "Are you just going to take pictures of big deer or actually kill
Nothing
them?"
wrong with that.
So he's been giving me trouble for a couple of years.
Right.
So the deer shows back up the night of the 24th at night, and it just looks comfortable there.
Yeah.
And then daylight the morning of the 25th.
And we're like, what the heck?
It's game time.
Yeah.
So
this deer might be a homeboy.
Yeah.
Right. And then, so we all have the alert set up. Like, our phone is about to jump out of our hands when the cell camera triggers and we get alert. Shows up daylight again that night of the 25th.
Yeah.
And there for hours. It's the weirdest thing.
Wow.
Yeah. And immediately I'm like, we got to get more cameras out. Figure out where he's at, where he's bedding.
Yeah.
That was my first thought. We need more cameras.
I know you weren't. Justin sends me a picture of it. He goes, "Don't tell anybody. We're not supposed to be talking about this." And I go, "Dude, you guys better kill that deer ASAP."
Quick.
Yeah.
That was the other thought. Like, based on the phase we were in.
Yeah.
Before it gets too late into the season, into October, and they start roaming and making scrapes and rubs.
Yeah.
Like he's food to bed, bed to food.
I think I said something like, "I guarantee you're not the only one with pictures of that deer in that county.
Right.
You better kill him quick."
And everybody's got that picture in their back pocket.
Yeah.
So, and actually there was an old cedar tree that had fallen over, and Dad cut it up, but left the stump. So it made the pictures look cool, because the cedar tree had, a bunch of stuff coming out. This deer had a lot of character, flyer off the right and stickers, but the root ball from the cedar tree created kind of a watering hole.
Yeah.
And the deer, I think,
and we were getting a lot of rain then.
A lot of rain.
Oddly enough, it was up here that the hurricanes kind of had a system rolling through.
Yeah.
So go put out more cameras, but
I immediately went online, bought more cameras. Yeah. And, so I'm like, we gotta litter this area and figure out, is he bedding to the north? Is he bedding to the south? You know how big we are on access and wind, right?
Yeah.
Where a lot of
people the right time.
Wait for the right time. Yeah. So cameras come, and there's a big rainstorm with the hurricane in the forecast on September 27th. And it's a Friday, and Jason and I are like, hey, I know this sounds weird, but let's go out during the rain in the middle of the day where the deer aren't going to be up and moving, and let's put out these cameras. And we didn't have a blind up yet.
Yeah.
We didn't even have the blind set up yet.
For what it's worth, the guy we just had on, he did the same thing. He was after 211, and he did the same thing. And he said it was supposed to be a mist, and it was a downpour. And I brought you guys up.
Right. Yeah. So we got 5 more cameras. Got the batteries, got the cards, got them all set up. Jason and I had our rain gear out, and we take Dad's old truck over to the property. And I mean, it's raining. You got to cross a creek to get to it. And we weren't thinking that the creek might be too high, and it wasn't. So we crossed, and we go over there, and very, very stealthy and strategically put up 5 more cameras to figure out where this deer is going, where he's bedding. The platform was always there for the blind, but we just didn't have it put up. So we put the blind up over, it's 15 yards from that stump we're getting the pictures of.
Yeah.
Almost a little too close for comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're being stealthy.
Got the cameras up. And then we focus on the bottom plot, and you got to drive down a pretty good hill to get to the bottom plot, and we're in Dad's old truck, and
this is an old
1999 Ford Ranger.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
It's kind of a farm truck. So Jason and I are like looking at each other before we head down. I'm like, should I drive down here? He goes, it's pretty rocky. We should be okay. I'm like, it's pouring the whole day.
What could go wrong?
Pretty snotty out.
Yeah. What could go wrong, right? So we get down there, we hang up the last camera, and we put up a blind on the bottom plot as well, which is right next to the creek. And I'm putting up the blind, and Jason's like, hey, have you seen the creek? I'm like, no, why? I look over, and it's
the creeks are rising.
It's roaring, right? Like it has come up 3 to 4 feet in the 2.5, 3 hours down there. So immediately we're like, okay, blinds up, last camera's out, let's go. We get in Dad's truck, and
you're being stealthy.
Get in Dad's truck, try to go up the hill, and it gets stuck.
Is it a 2-wheel drive?
Dude,
it's a 4-wheel drive.
The video of this is hilarious.
Yeah. Well, stealth went out the window.
Get your toe straps.
Yeah.
Tires are spinning, truck's going nowhere.
Yeah.
Is the truck out yet?
No.
It's still over there. Justin is stuck.
Talk about intrusion.
Yeah.
4-wheel drive mud just blowing over. I get out. It's pouring down, raining. I grab my phone, take just a very short video. I'm like, I don't know why we didn't do a video in the truck.
We'll put this video in the podcast because it's hilarious on the video version. That's funny.
So truck stuck. He looks at me. He's like, we're stuck.
Shit.
We got 2 options. We can walk out and try to cross this roaring creek, or we can go get the tractor that was still over there and see if we can cross it with that. So we're like, all right, let's do that.
Yeah. So leave our cups in there. My water cup's still in the truck. Truck's still over there today. But
I brought it today. I got it for you.
Nice.
But we go down through the bottom food plot, and walking along the edge, I look down, and there's a buckeye laying there. And Dad was big on buckeyes. He always carried a buckeye.
Always.
Had buckets of buckeyes in the garage for the grandkids.
Him, Ralph, and Terry Drury, the only 3 people I know that always carry one.
Always.
So we're walking down to assess the level of the creek, and I look down. There's a buckeye laying right on the edge of the food plot. I pick it up and hand it to Justin and look down again and find another one.
Yeah.
So I was like, here's Dad laughing at us that we have his truck stuck.
You idiots.
Dumbass.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So find these 2 buckeyes, right? And put them in our pocket.
And are there even buckeye trees over there? Have you guys ever found a buckeye?
I don't know.
I've never found a buckeye in the woods.
Yeah.
It was really random. Literally pouring down rain.
And he's like, look at this.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. So we get down the creek way too high, walk back up the top of this goat hill and huge ponchos of a backpack to get the tractor.
Yeah. And I drive the tractor down the hill, and I'm worried like the tractor's
slide down.
The hill. So I put the disc down, going down the hill as well to give us a little stability. Yeah, we drive down the hill, and we get to the creek, and we're getting ready to cross, and I'm like, this is not a good idea. Like, we cannot take this tractor across the creek. So we take it back up the hill and park it. And
the
then
intrusion level is at an all-time high.
That's
this is all on the edge of the property.
I did forget to mention that, though, because Mark said if you put out more cameras, you can't blow him out. And we
Right.
knew that. We're
Yeah.
like, we were so cautious putting out the cameras. But yes, we have the truck spinning a four-wheel drive, running a tractor down the hill.
And now back up.
What else can we do? Put a strobe light out there.
Yeah. We go down to the creek on foot, and we're like, all right, we're going to have to walk along the creek until we can find a spot to cross. There's a bridge. And
Yeah.
At one point I looked at Jason, I'm like, I wonder if we just put our phones in the backpack, throw it across the creek, and just try to wade across.
This is how
swim
people
across.
die.
Yeah, that's what he said.
And then I ended the sentence. I'm like, that's a bad idea. That's how
say it
people
out
die.
loud.
I did. I said it out loud.
funny.
Yeah. So we decide the only way out is on foot, up and down these ridges in pouring rain, and
All for a deer.
All for a deer.
all to get these cameras out. Yeah.
So
Cousin Eric, you call Cousin Eric up, right?
he comes and picks up. We actually have to go under the interstate twice and then under an interstate overpass. But Cousin Eric comes and picks up on the outer road where we, have access to the property. But so we got the cameras out. Eric is just shaking his head at us. But
I got another video at that point.
yeah.
In the group text.
And this is on September 27th.
These two are walking out of the field in their rain gear,
Yeah.
and Eric's just
Soaking wet.
commentating from
I
the
don't
truck.
think there was one thread that was dry on either of us.
No.
Were you guys Boy Scouts also?
They're both Eagle Scouts.
Eagle Scouts.
Jared's an
Yeah.
Eagle Scout.
Yeah.
Mark's an
Yeah.
Eagle Scout. Our cousin Waylon's an Eagle Scout.
Yeah.
I'm an
Yeah.
Eagle
You're an
Scout.
Eagle- Yeah.
But there are varying degrees of Eagle Scout.
Continuum, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you get out, no intrusion, very little.
Very little. where this deer was, very little intrusion.
Right.
Okay.
Everything else was like on the edge of the property by
Well,
the
maybe
creek.
you push some more deer in.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was Friday afternoon, evening. And we
What
both
what
have
was that date?
the 27th.
27th. Okay.
We both have events that Saturday, the 28th.
And after an all-day rain, like we all know what happens after a big rain event, right?
Yeah.
Like the deer just get up and move.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So I told Jason, like, we need to go hunt him on Saturday the 28th, and we couldn't.
Yeah.
And we actually didn't have we thought he was bedding to the north. It was a north wind, so we're like, we need to go hunt him.
Yeah. So, and we were a little hesitant. We weren't for sure if he's to the north or south. That's why we needed the cameras. But of course, then on the 28th, he shows up that evening.
5:50 p.m.
Yeah.
Like,
Comes out to the watering hole. It's full of water.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
We're like I said, phone's about to jump out of your hand. You're just like, oh my.
Yeah. I'm at a dinner auction with friends, and I told them, I'm like, I'm going to be sitting here.
not antisocial.
I'm not antisocial, but I said, when this alert goes off, and they're deer hunters as well,
Yeah.
I'm like, I know he's going to show up tonight.
Yeah. Tonight's the night.
It went off. I looked at my phone. I'm like, here he is. And they're like, no way.
We've all been there too, where you're on a deer and you're like, okay, this is the night to hunt, but I can't because I have family obligations or
Commitments.
obligations.
That's
or
how
whatever.
you can hold resentment for your loved ones.
Yeah.
For making you go to stuff like this
Yeah.
when you're on
just
a
full of hate and resentment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So the strategy plays out that we have multiple cameras out, and he shows up multiple times on several of the cameras, and figure he's bedded to our south, which made sense.
you kind of found out where he was.
We
bedded.
found out on the evening of the 28th that he went to bed to the
Right.
south of us. I was going to go hunt him on the 29th, Sunday, with a north wind.
Okay.
And, had a few adult beverages, and like at 1 o'clock, I'm looking at pictures. I'm like, he's to the south.
Yeah.
I can't go hunt him.
Yeah.
So he sends a text like he's to the south.
Yeah.
So
Can't go hunt him.
because the north wind.
The north wind would have blown our wind
right
right
to
to
him.
him and right to the watering hole that he was coming to.
yeah, we had it all mapped out on DeerCast where the cameras are, where the stand is, where the horseshoe around like a north wind is going to blow over all that.
Yep.
So we basically, that's where the patience came into play. Is like, we can't hunt the wrong wind
Correct.
on this deer.
Okay, so we had a couple days of northerly wind. Then
North.
south hits.
He keeps showing up.
How many days later?
South was,
South was coming on the 2nd.
yeah,
October
5. October 2nd was the first south.
First south.
We had him
So you
again.
got 4 or 5 days, 3, 4, 5 days there where
We're
you're
just
seeing
watching
them.
him show up on this camera, and we're like, "Oh my god, it's
The
it's killing us."
Shows up on the 1st in the evening, daylight in the evening, October 1st, and we're just like, oh my gosh, north wind blowing right over him.
Yeah.
So, then the first south came October 2nd.
We saw it coming.
Justin's out of town.
And I had to fly out of town for work on the 2nd, back on the 4th. And Jason and I are talking, and I was like, you need to go in there and hunt him.
Which you said, you're like, we need to be in that stand any chance we can get on the right wind.
No matter who it is.
On the right wind. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was no like, this is my deer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jason said there was 3 strategies. I think the 4th one was like, none of us had an eagle. Like, I got to kill this deer.
Yeah. And even Jared, right?
Yeah.
Jared's like, hey, you guys go in and hunt that deer.
Right.
Which I checked with him. He was coaching flag football for Henry on the 2nd. He's like, I'm not available. Justin's out of town. I was like, it's a south wind. I'm the youngest. Showed up on my birthday. I jokingly said, I jokingly said, it's my birthday. I'll take the first chance at this deer.
Yeah.
Back on September 22nd. But the other piece we forgot to mention is we were trying to really set this up for the grandkids and mom. And when this deer showed up,
to bring that in.
Yeah.
You two are talking about which dad gets the hunt.
Well, I sent
legacy hunts.
I sent the picture to one of my buddies that I've hunted with in Texas and kind of told him the story. And I said, once this deer showed up, we're like, do we really put the kids under that pressure? Like it's a big deer.
You're thinking of the kids.
Well, we'll take the pressure off of them, right?
Selfless.
That's a little bit where the eagle came in.
But
Daddy needs this.
Yeah. Which he did say, he goes, you guys are such great sons for your mom, to improve this for the grandkids. But then you guys are like,
on their side, not so much.
But I agree with you.
So the same thing.
Great segue though. October 2nd, first south. I'm available. Call cousin Eric. Hey, can you grab a camera and go with me? I'm going in to hunt this deer.
And Eric has been around this his whole life as well. His brother Ben was a huge hunter, loved hunting, and Eric's got a piece of property him and his son hunt on and do a lot of land management. He's been around Jared and Mark, and he's filmed your dad kill a deer with Jared before. I mean, like he's been around all this forever.
And his brother Ben is the stand that we were talking about that he killed his first deer up. Ben built the stand.
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah.
And Ben's also passed.
Yes.
So it's another special part of the story.
Yeah.
So I picked my son up from school, and Justin was going to take either Ava Bell or Brady when he hunted. It wasn't that we weren't going to involve them with the hunt. So I picked Braxton up from school a little bit early, drive down, meet Eric, rendezvous at mom's house. She's just beside herself, excited about the possibility of, seeing or harvesting this deer.
And Linda is she's a saint. She's a living saint. We all say it all the time. And she gets very excited about these types of family and hunting. And these are things that are right in her wheelhouse, right? And the emotion around the story in general. So this is special for her, even the thought of a big deer being on the property, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
So, I have a smaller SUV. We have to cross the creek. So we load up in Dad's truck. Braxton, myself, Eric.
Not the one that was stuck.
Not the one that's stuck.
the
Luckily,
farm
Dad
truck
had 2 trucks. His white Ford F-150. And we called it the JBE or the John Boy Express. Dad would drop anything if we ever needed help. And that's another piece, too, is like he always helped us with whatever we needed.
Yeah.
And I had that feeling when I was disking the top food plot, like, why didn't I come help Dad? But your dad, Terry, why didn't I help him more? Your dad, Terry, said it best. Like, Dad outworked one person, that was himself. So he had a work ethic where he always wanted to outdo himself. Like, he competed with himself. He would never talk or bring that up, but he never asked us to help him.
Not once.
And I feel bad we didn't offer to go down and help.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he always helped us.
Only time he ever asked for help was a few years ago. He was at a football game and felt bad. Had this pain and his leg and his arm was numb, and it took him to his knees, and he threw up, and he's like, I need to go to the hospital. So when Dad called and said, hey, we take
everybody jumps.
Boom.
Yeah.
That was the one time I remember him asking for help.
Yeah.
So we load up in Dad's truck, have a plan. I had sent Uncle Mark the map on DeerCast. He said, what's your access? What's the wind? Where do you think he's coming from? And he said, looks good. Like, good luck.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the deer daylighted the day before. My hope was kind of up, kind of down. I didn't really know what, but we knew we had to be in there in the first south wind. So we get in the stand early about, 3:30. It's still relatively warm, but that south wind was bringing a front with it. And not much movement other than bluebirds, cardinals, squirrels.
Yeah.
A lot of birds. So starts out very slow. And
I'm getting text updates from them, in the blind as I'm in Michigan on my work trip. And, he even said that day, he's like, "Are you sure you want me to go in and hunt?" I'm like, "Yes, go in and hunt him."
Yeah.
Like someone has to hunt him on this south wind. It's first south after a ton of north.
Yeah.
Like we talked about that a lot as well. Deercast, showed a good on that day. I'm like, you got to get in there.
so we're sitting there, and I double, triple check with Justin. I'm like, "Are you sure you're okay if this deer comes out that I am able to take a shot with the crossbow?"
It's not going to rip our family apart.
And you're also using Justin's crossbow. Justin's camo.
Borrowed some of his new camo, muddy camo, and muddy boots.
Camera, tripod.
Yeah.
So I was
You were there in spirit.
Practically killed it.
You basically killed it. Get a replica mount.
Yeah.
Put it in your house.
Put it on his tab. Yeah.
So text him, was like, "Are you sure you're okay if this deer presents an opportunity that I take a shot with your crossbow wearing your boots?" But those boots are comfortable.
Yeah,
the new
very.
muddy boots.
They are comfy. That's the one thing I've heard from everybody that's had them. Is like, these are the best boots I own.
So he responds, "Kill him."
Okay.
Can you be more clear than that, right? So
I'm like, maybe he hasn't heard me every other time. I'm like, go in there and kill him. Like in the blind still. Are you sure?
We have no other options. Kill him.
Yes. But I literally responded back with kill him.
yeah. So Eric spots the deer to our south in this thick brush, and he is just like walking up, shaking his head.
Was Eric excited?
He was excited. Yeah.
Could tell by the camera work, Eric.
Yeah. He was excited, and it was just taking in that moment. I was really just trying to be present and overcome the emotion of everything going on, right? Like, and it's hard to block that out. My heart's racing, my legs shaking.
Yeah.
But just, it was a sight like every deer hunter dreams of.
And he's exactly where you needed him to be.
Yes.
To the south wind, blowing in the face.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So then we thought he was going to come out at like 20 yards, but he kind of changes course and comes out around 50. And another buck was following him. And they're just like grazing and felt comfortable in this logging road food plots.
Hidey hole.
And probably, I don't know, we'd have to ask Eric how many times he told me to shoot him. 10, 15,
20.
At what yardage was he telling you?
He was at 50, and he was coming in he kind of came into 38, 35, but there was a bunch of still tall trees in my way. And I have the crossbow on a tripod, so I was kind of having to move it, but still be quiet. The only two out there, it's not super windy, but the wind was blowing in our face. And I was super patient. And you said something about Texas. Like, I've hunted Texas a couple times, and that's really taught me to be patient. You can kind of observe the deer down there, just enjoy being outdoors, enjoy the natural
There's no
habitat.
rush to shoot them.
There's no rush.
And what did I tell you before you went in? I'm like, hey, if this deer comes out, do what Jim Tomei says and slow down the game.
Yeah.
Like,
Hard to remember that.
It's hard to remember that in the moment. Yeah.
And that's right. You did say that.
Trying to coach him through that, because like we've all been there. Like deer's coming and oh my God, the deer's going to get away. I got to shoot him right now.
Yeah.
Boom.
Take a bad angle or just shoot too early.
Correct.
Whatever.
Yeah. Don't rush the shot. Make a good shot.
Yeah.
But be patient and slow it down.
So the deer was grazing, like assuming the food was highly palatable at the time, but it wasn't going anywhere. I mean, and I felt some pressure of time, but still just took my time and made sure I was locked in. I had, on the scope, you have to dial it up. So I had him at 43 yards at the rangefinder, had changed the scope. It started to get dark in the blind, and oddly, I had to turn the flashlight on my watch and look at the scope to make sure I was dialed in.
Yeah, the right yardage.
Confirmed Eric was on him, and just literally had him in my crosshairs and let the bolt fly, and saw it literally just pass right through him, and could not believe it.
And there's probably 20 minutes where he's out there?
He was out there probably 20 minutes.
That's a lifetime.
Yeah. Sorry, I kind of jumped ahead of that, but he literally was coming, as I said, 50 to 38. I don't know if I got him below 35, but he was at 43. The other deer was off making a scrape behind him, and it was like a sight. I just couldn't believe it. I mean,
like I said, Geographic.
It's like what you dream
so
about. Right?
It's you, Eric, and Braxton's in the blind with you. So
in the
Braxton's
blind.
getting to see him as well, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So the blind was a little taller. Braxton, though, said that he saw him a couple times, but didn't want to like stand up and spook the deer.
Smart kid.
So smart kid. And but great to have
at that age. That's I mean that you got to say
good.
like that's pretty darn good.
Yeah, good instinct.
And 20 minutes, that's 20 minutes of opportunity for someone's chair to make a weird clicking sound.
A phone to vibrate or whatever. Yeah.
Something.
Drop anything on a platform.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Done that.
Yep.
So watch the arrow fly, and Eric turns the camera to me. He's like, "You absolutely smoked him." And I thought I did, but hearing him tell me that, like, just the emotion that came over me, hugging Braxton, high-fiving Braxton, high-fiving Eric, and just could not believe what happened.
And from my vantage point in Michigan, like, I wasn't getting pictures. Like, there wasn't a lot of a lot of alerts going off. Mm-hmm. And I get a text from Eric, who's a jokester.
Yeah.
He jokes all the time. And he says, Jason just smoked him. And I saw the text. I'm like,
he wouldn't joke about that, I wouldn't think.
Well, I still thought he was joking because I called no bucks on any camera.
Okay.
And so I was just a little leery. And then all of a sudden he sends a video of the LCD screen.
Yeah.
And I watched it.
Yeah.
I watched it. I'm like with all these people and had to step away. And I'm watching. I'm like, oh my God, he just couldn't have hit the deer any better.
Yeah.
Great shot.
Yeah, so video that sent it to Justin, Jared, Mom, my wife Katie, and Uncle Mark, and said just absolutely smoke this deer. So Mark immediately calls. He goes, "That deer's done."
Yeah,
that deer's done.
Right. Yeah.
So it, kind of a lengthy story. The deer ended up running about 40 yards, jumping the neighbor's fence. So we had to call the neighbor. And actually, the neighbor had someone hunting the same deer on his property. Yeah. And we were able to connect with him.
You guys watched him go in. A great guy we've all known forever.
So as we open this up, we could see in the pasture on the neighboring property, and Eric identifies a guy coming in, uses binoculars, recognize him, so he texts him, and the guy goes, "Don't shoot that big deer." And we didn't even know the guy jokingly because obviously we knew then what he was hunting,
and everybody knows Eric. And Eric's got that kind of relationship with everybody in Bloomsdale.
Right.
So Eric goes, "We shoot on purpose," because he's like, "What do I tell him?" And then he said, "We shoot on purpose." But anyway, so we text the guy and say, "Hey, we just shot this deer. It jumped the fence, ran down in the pasture. Please don't bump him out." So he ends up walking up, and oddly enough, it's Les Giesler of local guy, worked with Dad for how many years?
Great friend of Dad's.
10, 15 years.
Family.
Yeah. So having then that connection of one of Dad's good friends that worked with Dad construction. So we meet up with him, call the landowner, get access to go over and then, track the deer. But we waited just a little bit. We went back to get better lights, using the crossbow. We had good blood on both sides. It wasn't great, but it was still good. So we gave him some time, went back, got some better lights, and then we're able to drive Dad's truck up around in the pasture and probably tracked him 40, 50 yards from where we stopped. And then he just opened up the last 20. And then we spot him laying there in the pasture, and what a sight. Yeah. So
I think we've all been there with ground shrinkage, right? Like you think the deer's bigger than it is, and then you get up on him and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think you had the opposite here, right?
The opposite for sure.
Ground expansion. Yeah. What we all dream of.
Huh.
Yeah.
Never heard of that.
Yeah. What's that like, right?
So, and then, having that moment of being able to drive Dad's truck right up to it after we send some pictures out to Mom, my wife, everybody, and to back Dad's truck up and load this deer in the back of Dad's truck, having my son, with me, and having those memories of hunting with Dad. And we would check after we went hunting if he pulled in the driveway or backed in. 99 times out of 100 he pulled in. Sure. But if he backed in, we're like, oh, Dad got a deer. So to be able to load it up in the back of Dad's truck and drive it up and share that moment with Mom was like no other. So my wife and my other son Miles drove down, and to be able to back up into Mom's driveway with this big buck in the back of the truck was
special.
Yeah.
What a neat way to, and really the story does continue. I mean, you guys are still out there. There's other deer, obviously, but it's such a neat, those signs, throughout the story from John and kind of the deer showing up on your birthday and the Buckeyes and all that stuff. It's a neat story.
Yeah. So I forgot to mention, I had the Buckeye in my pocket and during the hunt. I had that feeling that something was going to happen. You kind of get that sixth sense, but had the Buckeye in my pocket, and it was super special. So then back to it, there was that point where we realized that this was the deer Justin filmed in November of 22.
Mm-hmm. It's also a deer that once you kill a deer like that, no matter where at, but especially if you're like back down in the hometown, small town, word gets out, everybody's got pictures of this deer. And I thought I had heard as far away as 4 miles possibly at one point.
1.5 miles, I know.
Well, I know that, but I thought I had heard somebody got a picture of him even further.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe no one was telling me that.
It's possible. There's definitely a kid, a Viox boy, that had him 1.5 miles by the crow flies away on the other side of a major interstate.
And a highway.
Yeah. And he had him all summer in velvet, and he was able to share some of those pictures. But
he had pictures up until September 10th.
September 10th, and then he lost him on the 10th.
And he showed up on our cameras on the 22nd.
Yeah.
Sure. And our neighbor had him on the 22nd too, as his first picture, but he never had daylight pictures of him.
Really?
So knowing that we had the daylight pictures, he was bedding close, going to food, hitting that water hole.
We knew we had to get in there and get him before the water hole dried up as well, because that was his spot.
Yeah.
Sense of urgency.
Yes.
To get it done.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've had the last couple episodes, 3 episodes, because we had Mark talking about his 184. We had Lance talking about his 232. We had the gentleman last week, Ryan, talking about 211. You guys talking about 180. And there is a common.
We got the smallest deer.
Yeah, and that's something, a 180.
Just diminished you guys.
Appreciate that vote of confidence.
The common thread is they're great stories. All of them are great big deer stories, and caveats to each of them, and side storylines, and it's just amazing to me. That's why I love doing that this time of year where we can have guests on the podcast. By the way, this is episode 400. We should have started the show with that. I don't know if you knew that. It's episode 400.
Yeah.
So this is a special one to share with you guys, but it's a common thread amongst all these big deer stories. There's just a lot of perseverance, a lot of preparation, a lot of hard work that comes into it, and thought and strategy,
and that's a great point. I think one thing too of being students of the game, always learning. The stealth cell cameras have taught us so much in real time about patterns. Because had we gone back in and checked these cards this week,
a month later, or a week later,
So they really upped our level of understanding the patterns, the movements. Real time,
triangulating it, and
even to the point where I was going to go hunt them on September 28th, and not until 1 a.m. that morning we realized,
can't do it.
Yeah.
Waited till the second.
Yeah,
probably felt like an eternity.
It did.
Pictures of them every day. So pretty special.
Yeah.
So now what? I mean, you guys, it's hard to go from 180.
Hard to top that.
Yeah.
But there's still good deer showing up. Like this morning, our notifications were going berserk on the way up here, and the next big shooter, we hadn't had a picture of him since October 9th, and he was all over the field this morning. So,
there you go.
Yeah.
I'd be taking off work.
It's crazy. So 1984 to 2024, and just 40 years of who knows what this is going to turn into.
Yeah.
And
no expectations.
Dad killed a deer 1986. Hanging on the wall. 10-pointer, 125, 30 inches. Jared killed a deer there in high school, 130, 35 inches. Like, those were the 2 biggest deer taken off of the property.
Yeah. Good deer, especially for that time, for that area.
Yeah. Those were big deer.
Yeah.
So nothing, I don't think anything in the 140s ever taken off that property. So they just
quite the leap.
Raised the bar.
Yeah.
Big time.
Replicas for everybody.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so now there's still a pretty good shooter there, and is focusing on the kids too.
Right.
Braxton
now we bring the kids back in.
Maybe.
We cleared out the riffraff. Now you let loose.
Yeah. Now that Jason's got his 180, now
it's about the kids.
That's funny. Well, it's pretty neat, man.
Yeah. So I did bring Braxton today, longtime listener of the podcast, first time on it. So I don't know, Braxton, you want to come up?
Braxton, you listen to the podcast?
Live studio audience.
That's not a crate always.
and honestly, I mean, Matt and Tim, like Braxton listens to the podcast on the drive to school on his iPad, and I learned so much from it.
The guests.
Yeah, Brax, you want to say anything just real quick? Here, I'll let you take these.
I've been listening to Drury Outdoors for a long time, and I really love all their podcasts and stuff.
Hey,
Braxton, how old are you, buddy?
I'm 10 and a half, turning 11 in November.
Big stuff. And you're going to hopefully get your first deer, right, this year?
First buck.
First buck, sorry. Yeah, that's right. You got a doe.
Yeah. Braxton, you know then how much Matt and I have been struggling to kill a deer. I'm curious, what is your top tip for us to finally kill a good buck?
Don't say listen to Uncle Mark. We know that.
Try to get out there as much as possible.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
that's a good one.
Solid.
So Braxton, he's an avid bow fisher.
Yeah, tell them about your first bow fishing.
This summer or last year, I got a bow fishing bow for Christmas, and this August, I finally got a carp with it.
Not just a carp. This thing
like
was
this big?
gigantic.
Giant carp.
Big grass
Gigantic.
carp.
Oh, yeah.
You
Yeah.
should take cousin Matt with you sometime. I'm sure he would love to bring lots
Well,
of
where he's fishing, I wouldn't mind. It's at the lake.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so Braxton, hopefully this is your year. I have a feeling it may just be finally your turn to get that big old buck on the ground.
Hopefully.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Sweet.
All right. Well, I think we'll skip the shenanigans for this week. It's been a good podcast. Tim, any closing words or Justin, Jason, any closing words for us?
I'd say just good luck to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Season's early. It's great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So
These stories just reaffirm the fact that anything can happen as long as you're out there.
Yeah.
Sure.
And obviously,
right.
like, you can do damage, so it's not like go all the time and go whenever. But if you're smart about it, if you're out there, you just never fully know what is possible.
And these guys put in the work. That deer, he stayed around because the habitat was such, right?
Yeah.
He didn't continue to move through.
And I think we're going to hear a lot about, you went in one time and shot a 180-inch deer, but there's so much, as you heard, there's so much more to it than just walking in and shooting 100.
Yeah, I heard the word on the street as everybody texted Eric. It said, "That's awesome, but when did Jason start hunting?"
and
I go, he's been hunting a while. Been killing good deer down in Texas, and
it's one of those things. I think overarching everything, how I started, like the teamwork, the hard work, the patience, the preparation, just the communication, using DeerCast, using our knowledge. There's so much that goes into it. But to that point, a lot of people who are removed from it think, man, this guy went in there once.
Must be nice.
Yeah, right. So anyway, it feels good. And actually, Braxton said this. Matt, you kind of said it, but Braxton said, like, let's hang this mount at Grammy's house and get replicas made that everyone,
that's
can
right.
share in.
I like it. It's just a couple $4,000-$5,000 worth.
Yeah.
That's a lot of replicas.
Yeah.
Well, it's an awesome legacy that you guys are carrying on from your dad. I'm sure he's proud of you guys for what you've done, and I'm sure your mom is just absolutely tickled about all this.
And I think this just went to show totally made the right decision to keep it, to improve it, to keep that legacy going for us boys and all of our kiddos. Brady, Henry, Ava Bell,
Stella, Braxton, all of them. You guys got a pile to take hunting.
Yeah,
so
Vincent. Yeah,
you need more ground.
we do. No, Vinny.
I got a farm. I can tell you. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, happy 400th.
Yeah,
That's right. 400 in. Can you believe it,
Feels
Tim?
like 500.
Feels like 1,000. Feels like eternity.
Yeah. Well, next week is 401 then.
Thank you, Tim. Yes, it is.
That's how that
That's
works.
the kind of deep analysis people tune in for.
Hopefully we have another gross Boone that we could talk about. These episodes are fun, man. They're really, really good times. So
Heck yeah.
I think that'll do it for today. And if you haven't seen it, do go check out the next Dream Season Live that has Jason's 180 on it. It should, if it's not out by the time this podcast airs, it should be, but if it's not, it'll be any day. You can check it out on Drury Outdoors YouTube channel, DeerCast, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right. Thanks for coming in, boys.
Coming by.
Yeah.
All right. Until next time, good luck, safe hunting, peace out.
Take land management to the next level with DeerCast's exclusive virtual rain gauges. Pinpoint accuracy and historical data, all powered by industry-leading ag weather services. DeerCast has the tools to keep you ahead of your game.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV is brought to you by DeerCast Maps, waypoints, weather, virtual rain gauges, and more. Every tool you need to get ahead of your game.